Good day, I'm your humble narrator SideWaysThinker, and I'm just here with another episode of That There Enigmatic Entity, a series in which I discuss the more uncanny video game characters. In this episode, we will be discussing a rather unusual character who, when you compare him to the other characters in the same series, still comes off as frankly bizarre. First, a warning. Due to the nature of this character, and of this series generally, there will doubtless be some minor to moderate spoilers regarding the Guilty Gear series. If you don't want the plotline spoiled for you, stop watching the video now. Also, I want to apologise now, as I may pronounce one or more of the characters' names incorrectly. For the unaware, the Guilty Gear series is a series of 2D fighting games released primarily on the PlayStations 1 and 2. The games are generally well considered, critically, known for their fast combat, bizarre characters, detailed level and sprite art, fluid animation, and having a kick-ass heavy metal soundtrack. It also, like most fighting games, has a plot that is frankly utterly insane and arbitrary, serving only to give the loosest of context to the fights in the game, and to characterize the strange creatures that exist in its rosters. If you hadn't figured out from the title and the thumbnail of this video, today we'll be discussing the character of Faust, the mad reality-bending doctor who's a staple of the series. As with many characters in the Guilty Gear series, it is fairly obvious that their visual design took precedence over all other aspects of the character, with backstories and even fighting styles being based on the appearance rather than vice versa. To this end, Faust is an extremely tall and thin character, which would allow him to tower over any of his opponents, with the possible exceptions of Potemkin and Justice, though his low stance when fighting leaves him below most other characters. Other than his height, other odd features of his visual design include the bag he wears on his head as a mask with a single eye hole, and the fact that his weapon is in fact a giant scalpel, and is almost as long as he is tall. Along with his unusual visual design, the movements and attacks of Faust are also very strange. When he moves across the stage, he does so normally in a loping crawl along the ground, many of his basic attacks being swipes with his gigantic scalpel or upward attacks. Much akin to Voldo of Soul Calibur, much of Faust's movement animations can serve to confuse his opponent, leaving you uncertain of how to respond to his attacks until it's too late. This, combined with his apparent ability to warp reality, thus giving him some of the least conventional attacks in the game, make him a rather difficult opponent if played by a skilled player or on a high difficulty level. Now briefly onto his personality. Faust is known as a miracle worker by the various characters in the game. He is also well known to be a complete and utter madman. Despite his insane behaviours and tendency towards violence, though he is a fighting game character, so him being a pacifist would be somewhat counterproductive, he is generally considered by fans of the Guilty Gear series to be a good guy, due to the fact that almost every time he shows up in the games, he is either attempting to cure someone currently, or appearing inexplicably to find someone to cure. Often when he does attack anyone through the course of the games, it is either out of self-defense, or because he perceives them as too aggressive and harmful to be allowed free reign. Now, onto his stories. Faust never appeared in the original Guilty Gear on the PS1, his first appearance being in Guilty Gear X on the PlayStation 2. In this first appearance, it is established that Faust travels the world looking for people to help, due to a feeling of guilt regarding some great wrongdoings in the past. Despite his own guilt, none of the cast seem to know exactly who he is, his mysterious identity being referred to throughout the series. He has two possible endings for his first appearance in the games. In the first ending, he convinces the character Dizzy, one of the titular Gears, a race of artificial and immensely powerful life forms, created by an even more mysterious figure known as That Man, to leave her forest home in order to protect her from the many people hunting her. In the second ending, he cures the character Zato, the former leader of the Assassin's Guild, of the parasite which has possessed him, the forbidden beast creature known as Eddie, by which the character is named in the Guilty Gear rosters. During the process of curing Zato, Faust must take on the parasite himself, leaving this ending impossible in the Guilty Gear canon, as Faust continues to make appearances in the rest of the series, clearly devoid of any kind of possession. In the third main entry to the series, Guilty Gear XX, Faust is seen again, still travelling the world in order to help people. In this storyline, he runs into the series poster girl I Know, a witch in service to the aforementioned That Man, who is known for her sadistic tendencies and bizarrely fighting with a guitar and music-based magic. Faust deems her too dangerous to live and thus pursues her. In one of the endings, he succeeds in tracking her down, only for her to refer to his dark past, and claim that he still enjoys causing bloodshed in the world. Exactly what I Know is referring to will be dealt with later. After rendering I Know unconscious, Faust states that he does indeed still enjoy causing pain, but vows to ignore this urge and continue his duty as a doctor to help people. In his second ending in the game, he meets Zappa, an Australian character suffering from a possession of an entirely different sort to that of Zato and his forbidden beast. Instead of a forbidden beast, Zappa suffers from possession by a number of parasitic spirits, the most powerful being the host Esco, who is in control of Zappa when he is fighting in the game. It may interest you to know know that due to the design and name of Esco, it is believed that she is a reference to the Ring films, her name derived from the main antagonist of the Ring series, Sadako, who begs Faust for a cure. Faust unfortunately states that he cannot cure Zappa's ailment. In the third ending of Guilty Gear XX, Faust meets Venom, the current leader of the Assassin's Guild, who claims that he and his guild were directly involved in the events of Faust's aforementioned dark past. Faust and Venom are then attacked by a horde of Robo-Kais, robotic version of Kai Kiski, created by the Post-War Administration Bureau, a shadowy organization that rose to power in order to keep order shortly following the War of the Gears, but despite currently being unnecessary, they remain in the games, desperately attempting to hold on to what little power they have for their evil scheme. With Venom informing Faust that if he helps him fight the Robo-Kais, he will tell him anything he wants to know. Before we continue, I'd like to do two things. First, I'd like to apologise for the fact that I'm almost certain I mispronounced Kai Kiski's name, but I have no idea how to pronounce it because I don't speak Japanese. I would also like to make a quick statement. This is the most insane looking script I've ever written for an enigmatic entity. Because all of the strange shit that goes on the Guilty Gear series, I've had to put in 5 or so asides in brackets so I can give the event's context. The last one about the Robo-Kais and the Post-War Administration Bureau had an aside within another aside. Madness. Also, Bridget has a dick. In Guilty Gear XX Ascent Core Plus, or Accent Core Plus, Faust is still travelling around, trying to find new people to help. He again runs into Zappa in one ending, after finally learning how to cure him of his possession. He convinces Zappa to undergo a surgery to change his face into a Picasso-like drawing, in order to scare the ghost away. This ending is considered a joke, as the actual cure is shown in one of Zappa's endings. In the second of Faust's endings, he runs into Slayer, an immortal vampire-esque character known as a Nightwalker, and the man who founded the Assassin's Guild, who is in the process of saying his last goodbyes to the mortal world before he flees to the other world, in which he plans to retire. He extends an offer to Faust to join him in the other world, recognizing Faust's supernatural nature and apparent immortality. Faust rejects the offer politely, saying that there are still people in the mortal world who need his help. Slayer agrees and allows Faust to go on his way. That is currently the last appearance of Faust in the Guilty Gear series that I know of. Now, on to what qualifies Faust as an enigmatic entity. Earlier in this video, I claimed that Faust did not appear in the original Guilty Gear. This is not entirely accurate. While there was no character named Faust in Guilty Gear, there was another character with several similarities who went by the name of Dr. Baldhead. Like Faust, he was a very tall character whose fighting stance was very low. He also fought with an oversized scalpel almost identical to the one that Faust uses. There are several large differences, however. First of all, Baldhead is not a comic character. While Faust is a very eccentric but ultimately good force in the world of Guilty Gear, Dr. Baldhead was a deranged serial killer who was considered to be one of the villain characters in the original game. The backstory of Baldhead holds many similarities with the implied backstory of Faust. Baldhead was once a great and kind physician who was driven mad with grief when a little girl in his service died. He blamed himself and went mad, sparking his killing spree. In actuality, the girl's death was a plot by other surgeons who felt they had a rivalry with Baldhead despite him being entirely unaware of it, and they used assassins to kill the girl in such a way as to make it look like it was due to Dr. Baldhead. After killing scores of innocent people, Dr. Baldhead was finally arrested and placed into a dimensional prison. I don't even know what one of those are, but I think we can guess. He remained imprisoned until a strange man wielding a scythe and dressed in black, believed to be another character from the Guilty Gear games, a gear by the name of Testament, broke in and freed him of his imprisonment and returned his scalpel to him. After being freed, Baldhead was sent to the second Sacred Order selection tournament, thus beginning the events of the first Guilty Gear game. His ending in this game had people praising him for saving them from the powerful and evil gear Justice, not caring about the madness and previous evils of Dr. Baldhead. This praise snapped him out of his madness and forced him to fall into a deep sense of guilt, causing him to flee into the night, never to be seen again. Then Faust appeared. It is heavily implied that Faust is Dr. Baldhead. I know referring to him enjoying bloodshed is one of the primary callbacks. Venom telling Faust that his guild was involved in the death of a young girl in Faust's charge is another. Another two less obvious references are that if Faust meets May in his storyline, she will not enjoy being near him as she claims to dislike bald men, and that one of his taunts involves him removing his paper bag, showing a silhouetted bald head surrounded by a halo of light. Another odd note, though not telling of the connection between Baldhead and Faust, is that it is never explained exactly how Faust received his powers. It could be assumed that he got them through some deal with a demon, as with his namesake Dr. Faustus, who sold his soul to Lucifer in exchange for 24 years of service from the powerful demon Mephistopheles. It could be, at the same time, simply meaning that Faust just happens to have unusual powers. From all of this, it is fairly obvious that Faust is Baldhead, though despite this being generally accepted by fans of the series, it was never officially stated by the developers, though these similarities could all be red herrings for all we know. However, for the moment, it seems as if the Guilty Gear series is over, so we may never get the final word. Well, that's going to have to be all from me for now. I've been your humble narrator, SideWaysThinker, and as always, keep calm and carry on. Good day.